I'll never forget the first time I saw that red tag. It was flapping in the wind on my front door, bright as blood against the unfinished wood of my new house. At first glance, it looked official, bold letters screaming, "Stop work." But something about it felt off. The font was wrong. The paper looked cheap. And the so-called signature at the bottom, nothing but a messy scribble. I remember standing there with dust on my boots, hammer in one hand, staring at it while my stomach dropped. "This can't be real," I whispered. From inside the trailer, my wife, Lena, stepped out, wiping paint from her hands. "What's that?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I ripped it down and showed her. Her eyes narrowed. "Who gave you this?" That's when I heard footsteps crunching over gravel. A man in a blue windbreaker, cheap sunglasses, and scuffed shoes strutted toward us like he owned the place. He had a clipboard tucked under his arm and a fake leather badge holder dangling from his pocket. "I'm Marshal Hayes," he said in a voice that cracked halfway through. "State compliance." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "State compliance? That's not even a thing." His jaw tightened. "I'm here to tell you that this construction is in violation of community rules. You'll need to shut it down immediately." Lena crossed her arms. "We've got county permits. Every single one. And this land isn't under the HOA. He didn't flinch. He just walked past me like I was invisible and slapped another red tag against the frame. "Failure to comply could result in a $10,000 fine per day," he said, his voice low and smug. That was the moment I felt it, the burn of rage in my chest. This wasn't just paperwork. This was an attack. Someone wanted us gone. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so he had to look me in the eye. "Let me see that badge again." His hand twitched. He pulled it out, but too fast, like he didn't want me to really look. The shiny emblem was crooked, the lettering blurred. A toy badge from a dollar store would have looked more convincing. "That's fake," I said flatly. For a split second, his face broke. Fear flickered in his eyes. Then he turned on his heel, sprinting for his car. "Hey!" I shouted, chasing after him. My boots pounded on gravel. I wasn't fast, but he fumbled, dropped his clipboard, and papers scattered like snow in the wind. I grabbed the back of his jacket. It tore in my hands like tissue. He swung wildly at me, missing, before scrambling into his car and peeling away. I stood there, chest heaving, staring at the mess he left behind. On the ground, among the papers, was an email printout, and in bold letters I read, "Make it scary for them. They need to understand we are serious." "Karen." Lena picked it up, her face pale. "Bob, this isn't just harassment. This is a conspiracy." I didn't answer, because deep down I already knew. This wasn't about rules. This was war. For a few days after the fake marshal ran off, things were quiet. Too quiet. Lena tried to convince me to focus on the build. "Let's just keep working. If we do everything by the book, the county will protect us." But my gut told me otherwise. I've lived long enough to know silence isn't peace, it's the sound of someone sharpening a knife. And I was right. It was 2 nights later, just past 2 a.m., when the first alert came. Lena's phone buzzed on the nightstand. She bolted upright, eyes wide. "Motion detected. East side." My heart slammed into my ribs. I grabbed the laptop and pulled up the feed from the new cameras we'd installed. The screen lit up with black and white footage, and there they were, 2 shadows creeping along the edge of our property. I leaned closer, whispering, "Who the hell?" The figures bent low, yanking at wooden stakes. Our survey markers, the ones showing the official boundary line. They weren't just trespassing. They were stealing our land, inch by inch. One of them whispered something. The mic barely picked it up, but the voice was familiar. Gary, the smug board member who always hovered near Karen, like a guard dog waiting for scraps. The other was Ted, his jittery little sidekick. "They're moving them." "Closer," Lena murmured. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the ice underneath. On screen, Gary pulled a stake out of the ground, shoved it 5 feet into our side, and hammered it back down. Then Ted followed, repeating the same move. Stake by stake, they were redrawing reality in the dead of night. I clenched my fists. Every muscle in me screamed to run out there to confront them face to face. I should go. But Lena grabbed my arm, her grip iron strong. No, let them finish. Her eyes locked onto mine. We need evidence, Bob. Every second they're on camera is another nail in their coffin. So we sat there in the glow of the laptop, watching two middle-aged men act like thieves. My pulse roared in my ears. I swear I could even smell the damp dirt they were disturbing, feel the vibration of each hammer strike through the earth. Finally, after almost half an hour, they finished. They slapped hands together in a pathetic high five and slipped back into the dark like rats. Lena immediately saved the footage. 3 copies, backed up to drives in the cloud. Chain of custody starts now, she whispered, more to herself than to me. The next morning, I called Deputy Miller, the young sheriff's deputy who had taken our first report. I emailed him the footage. He called me back within the hour. Mr. Thornton, he said, his voice tight, this isn't just harassment anymore. This is criminal trespass and property tampering. Keep that video safe. We're building a serious case here. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of hope. But that hope didn't last long, because the following week things didn't just get worse, they turned violent. The morning started with hope. After weeks of digging trenches, tying rebar, and sweating under the sun, the foundation pour was finally scheduled. The trucks were coming. By the end of the day, we'd have the bones of our home, something solid to remind us this fight was worth it. I was up before dawn, pacing the edges of the wooden forms, checking every corner. The golden light spilled over the valley, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself a smile. Today's the day, I told Lena, kissing her forehead. No one's stopping us now. I should have known better. At exactly 7:55 a.m., the low rumble of the first concrete truck echoed up the road. The mixer turned slowly, heavy with liquid stone. My heart leapt. But then I heard it, the hiss of air brakes. The truck stopped. I jogged down the driveway, and that's when I saw them. A perfect row of bright orange cones blocked the entrance. Behind them, like sentries at a gate, stood Gary and Ted. Matching HOA polo shirts, arms folded, smug as devils. The truck driver leaned out of his cab. He was a big guy, grizzled beard, tattoos crawling up his arms. "Hey, buddy," he shouted down, "you got a situation here. I can't sit too long. This stuff sets fast." I felt heat rise in my chest. "Morning, fellas," I said to Gary and Ted. "Move the cones." "I've got work to do," Gary smirked. "Sorry, Bob. HOA Safety Committee has decided heavy trucks like this are a risk to our community roads. You'll have to send him back." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Safety Committee? At 7 in the morning? You mean the two of you standing here like mall cops?" Gary's smirk widened. "Rules are rules." I stepped forward, kicking one of the cones aside. My boot sent it rolling into the ditch. "That's it. I'm done with your games," his face twisted. He shoved me hard in the chest. The impact sent me stumbling back, gravel crunching under my boots. "You're not coming through here." He shouted. For a moment, time froze. My jaw clenched, my pulse thundered. Then the old animal part of me woke up. I lunged, shoving him back twice as hard. "Get off my land!" I roared, but Ted grabbed my arm, pulling me sideways. Before I could shake him off, Gary's fist came flying. A wild right hook slammed into my jaw. Pain exploded across my face. I tasted blood instantly, warm and metallic. My vision blurred. The world tilted. I staggered back and fell hard, dust rising around me. "Enough!" The truck driver boomed, jumping down from his cab. He was a mountain of a man, fists like cinder blocks. "I saw that!" "You two just assaulted him. I'm calling the cops, and I'll be your witness." For the first time, Gary's confidence cracked. His eyes darted between me bleeding in the dirt and the towering trucker pulling out his phone. Ted's grip loosened. "Gary, we should go." Gary cursed under his breath, panic flashing in his eyes. Then, without another word, the two of them bolted, jogging down the street like schoolboys caught stealing candy. I sat there, jaw throbbing, cheeks swelling, blood dripping down my shirt. The truck driver offered me a hand. "You okay, man?" I spat red into the dirt. "I'll live." The concrete, ruined. By the time the sheriff arrived, the load had hardened in the truck. a pile of wasted stone that would cost me thousands. But strangely, I didn't care, because what we gained was far more valuable. A witness, a neutral, third-party witness who saw Gary throw the first punch. Deputy Miller took my statement, his face stone serious. He snapped photos of my swollen cheek, the bloodstains, the cones still scattered in the road. He wrote down the truck driver's testimony word for word. "This changes everything," Miller said. "We're not talking about harassment anymore. This is physical assault. And with your video evidence from before, we've got a pattern of escalation." I nodded slowly, my jaw aching. "Good, because I want them stopped." Miller tucked his notebook away. "Don't worry, Bob. They're not as untouchable as they think." As he drove off, I touched the swelling on my face, wincing at the sharp pain. That morning, something shifted inside me. The fight wasn't just about building a house anymore. It was about standing up to people who believed they could break the law, break me and get away with it. And I swore right then, if they wanted war, I was ready. But what I didn't know was that their next move wouldn't be fists. It would be something darker, something meant to make us feel helpless in our own home. I thought the punch was their peak, the worst they could throw at us. I was wrong. It was just after midnight, 3 days after the concrete clash, when the silence broke. Lena and I were asleep in the trailer, the hum of the night crickets outside lulling us to rest. Then her phone buzzed, violently. Not the soft chirp of a motion alert, but the frantic vibration of a system failure. She sat up, clutching the phone. "Bob, the cameras are down." My heart dropped into my stomach. I scrambled for the laptop, yanking it open. Every feed was black, the driveway, the boundary line, even the trailer door, all offline. Our fortress of eyes had gone blind. "They cut the power," I muttered, my throat dry. "They're out there, right now." I crept to the window, pulling the curtain back just an inch. Nothing but darkness pressed in on all sides. My skin prickled. The feeling was suffocating, knowing they could be anywhere, watching, waiting while we were blind. Lena's hands moved fast over the keyboard. Her voice was tight but calm. "Wait, not yet. I paid for the backup system." And then, like magic, the screens flickered back to life. One by one, the feeds reappeared. Black and white infrared lit up the property like a ghost world. And there he was, a shadow in a hoodie crouched under the side of our trailer at the junction box. Bolt cutters gleamed in his hands. He had pried the panel open, snipping wires like a surgeon. But what he didn't know, what made my stomach twist with dark satisfaction, was that the cameras had never really died. The backup power had kicked in instantly. He thought he was invisible. Instead, he was caught in high definition. The figure stood up, stretching his back, and looked straight at the camera. For a split second, his hood slipped and the lens caught his face perfectly. Ted. The same coward who had grabbed my arm during the concrete fight. And now here he was, grinning like a fool, thinking he'd blinded us. Lena zoomed in on his face, her lips curling into a cold smile. "Got you," she whispered. I felt the fear in my chest burn into anger. "Send it to Miller. Right now." She backed it up 3 times, then hit send with the subject line. "Look who came to visit." I sat down hard, my head spinning. The adrenaline had drained, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion. "They cut our power," I said quietly. "What's next? Fire? Poison?" Lena closed the laptop, her eyes steady. "Doesn't matter. Every move they make, we catch it. Every crime, every lie, it's all being documented. They're burying themselves." And she was right, because by trying to blind us, Ted had handed us the clearest evidence yet. Not just trespass, but destruction of property, tampering with security systems. Charges stacked higher and higher. But still, as I lay back down, staring at the ceiling of the trailer, the dread gnawed at me. Because Karen and her cronies weren't stupid, they were desperate, and desperate people always have one last card to play. The question that haunted me as I drifted in and out of uneasy sleep was this: what line would they cross next? The answer came sooner than I ever expected, and it was delivered in a way that would shake me to my core. I didn't even hear the email come in. Lena did. It was 2:17 a.m. We were sitting at the little kitchen table in the trailer, both of us sleepless. The glow from the laptop cast long shadows across the walls. My jaw still ached from the fight. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, but her hands never stopped moving, filing photos, labeling footage, building a fortress of evidence one digital brick at a time. Then her inbox pinged. She frowned. "Weird address," she murmured. A string of numbers and letters, no name. Subject line, "Proof, deleted," I said automatically. "Could be a virus," she shook her head. "Too specific. Look," she clicked. 3 attachments appeared. No message, no explanation. Just 3 image files. Lena opened the first one. I felt my stomach twist. It was a screenshot of a private group chat. Across the top, HOA board members, private. And there they were. The names, Karen, Gary, Ted, others. Karen's message: "The new owners on the ridge are not cooperating. They're stubborn. We need to apply pressure." Gary's reply: "Legal letters are a good start. Let's paper them to death." The second screenshot was worse, dated the night before the fake marshal appeared. Karen: "The legal approach isn't working. We need to escalate. Something to make them understand this is not a game." Gary: "My cousin's husband does private security. He can look official. Let's get him to post a stop work order. Make it bad for them. Red tag, big fines, scare them off the project for good." I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. This was it. This was the smoking gun, and then the third screenshot. Dated the night Ted cut our power. Karen's message burned into my eyes. "The police have been called. Gary and Ted might be charged. This has gone too far." Gary replied, "They have cameras, Karen. They probably have the whole thing on video. We have to shut them down." And then Karen again. "Do what you have to do. Cut their utilities. Make them feel unsafe. They need to go. Whatever it takes." Lena's hands were trembling as she saved each image. "She ordered it," she whispered. She gave the green light. I sat back, numb. After weeks of harassment, sabotage, and violence, here was their whole ugly conspiracy laid out in black and white. No spin, no excuses. Their own words, tying the crimes together. I looked at Lena. "Who sent this?" She shook her head. "Could be anyone on the inside. A guilty conscience. A spouse. A neighbor." A face flashed in my mind. Nate. Quiet Nate from 3 lots down. Always friendly, but lately nervous. His wife on the architectural committee. Last week, I'd seen Karen scolding him like a child in the street. Maybe he'd had enough. I made a mental note to give him a silent nod next time I saw him. No words. Just thanks. Lena forwarded the screenshots to Deputy Miller and our lawyer, then backed them up 6 times. Within minutes, our lawyer called. His voice buzzed with excitement. "This is it. This is the ball game. We're not just defending anymore. We're suing them all personally. Civil conspiracy, harassment, impersonation, you name it. We can go after their houses, their bank accounts. You're holding a nuclear weapon." I hung up and sat in silence. The laptop screen glowed like a torch in the dark, illuminating everything we'd been through. We'd been fighting in the dark, but now we had light. And it was blinding, but I also knew something else. People like Karen Fraser didn't fold. They didn't apologize. They doubled down, and in the weeks before court, she would prove me right in ways that shocked even me. The courthouse smelled like old wood and coffee. Lena and I walked in carrying thick binders, each tabbed, labeled, and cross-referenced. Months of chaos, sabotage, bruises, sleepless nights, all packed neatly into evidence. My jaw still had a slight ache when the weather changed, a reminder of Gary's fist. Lena walked tall beside me, cool as steel in a dark dress, every inch the woman who had turned our trailer into a war room. Across the aisle, Karen sat with her crew. Gary's jaw was clenched tight. Ted fidgeted, chewing his lip. Karen, though, she still wore that smile, the one that never reached her eyes. The smile of someone who thought she controlled the board, the judge, the entire game. Her lawyer looked slick, polished, confident, Ours looked ordinary, a bit rumpled with ink stains on his cuffs. But we had something they didn't, the truth. The judge was Rollins, sharp-eyed, no patience for nonsense. I'd heard he could spot a liar before they opened their mouth. I prayed that was true. Karen's lawyer went first. His voice boomed, dramatic, full of self-importance. He spoke about community character, about fragile aesthetics, about how our house was a scar on the neighborhood. He painted us as greedy outsiders, invaders who cared nothing for the people around us. If you didn't know better, you'd think we were villains. Then he presented his evidence. A forged red stop-work order. And, I swear to you, a toy-like scale model of the neighborhood. Tiny painted mountains, little plastic houses. Our home was a block of wood twice its real height, placed directly in front of Karen's. "See?" he said, holding it up. "This monstrous structure completely obliterates her view." For a long moment, silence. Then Judge Rollins chuckled. He took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes, and actually laughed. A wheezing, tear-wiping laugh that filled the entire courtroom. "Counselor," he said finally, "are you seriously asking me to ignore a certified GIS survey and a licensed county report in favor of a dollhouse project?" The lawyer's face turned scarlet. He stammered, muttered, shuffled his papers. Then it was our turn. Our lawyer didn't raise his voice once. He simply walked the judge through the chain of evidence. First, the fake marshal. Deputy Miller confirmed under oath that the badge was forged, the man an impersonator, and the order a fraud. Second, the videos. The nighttime stake moving, captured crystal clear. The power cut, Ted's face looking straight into the lens. Each clip backed up with timestamps and chain of custody notes. Third, the assault. My bruised jaw. The truck driver's calm testimony. Gary's shove. Ted's grab. Punches thrown in broad daylight, finally. The screenshots. Karen's words, her orders. Make it scary for them. Do what you have to do. Whatever it takes. You could hear the air leave the room. Rollins leaned forward, his eyes boring into Karen. The smug smile was gone. She looked small now, shrinking, cornered. "This," the judge said, voice low, "is one of the most frivolous and malicious suits I've seen in 30 years. You have wasted this court's time. You have harassed, assaulted, and conspired against this family. And you did it all because you wanted a better view." He dismissed their case with prejudice, ordered them to pay every penny of our legal fees, added punitive damages for the concrete, the survey, even the security system, and then the hammer. He referred the case to the district attorney. Criminal charges, conspiracy, impersonation, assault, vandalism. His gavel slammed down like thunder. "Your little kingdom," he said, staring at Karen, "ends at the Thornton property line. And today, it ends here in this court. It was over. Just like that. The days that followed were a blur. The newspaper printed the story. Neighbors whispered, cautionary tale. The DA moved quickly. Arrests were made. Karen in handcuffs on her perfect porch. I'll never forget the flash of cameras, the look of shock on her face. Gary and Ted went next. Fines, probation, bans from HOA boards for life. The HOA crumbled overnight. The board resigned one by one. A new election followed, and guess who became president? Quiet Nate, his first act? A letter of apology, mailed to every home, with a check attached, paying for the damages. And just like that, the war was over. We finished the house that spring. No red tags, no cones, no sabotage. Just sweat, wood, stone, and laughter. On the first night, we slept on the floor, eating pizza from the box, the wide windows open to the valley. The sunset poured into the room like liquid gold, but it wasn't just the view that mattered anymore. It was what the fight had shown us, that bullies fall no matter how powerful they look, that evidence is stronger than arrogance, and that the law, slow and boring as it can be, still wins in the end. On the first day of summer, Lena and I hosted a block party. We called it Sunset for All. Kids ran with sparklers, dogs begged for scraps, and for once the street was filled with laughter instead of suspicion. As the sky burned orange and purple, Nate raised his glass. The sunset doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to all of us. People cheered, and I stood there, Lena's hand in mine, looking out at the horizon. For months, that sunset had been the reason for our nightmare, but now it was simply beautiful again. The fight was behind us. The house was ours. And finally, so was the peace.